almost every block had at least one house fully engulfed.
Parts of a Canadian jewel unrecognizable this Thursday night.
And to those in Alberta and around the world who have experienced the magic of Jasper, the magic is not lost and it never will be.
The immense losses and the ongoing fight to save what's left of a national treasure.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. There was no way to hold back the flames. Last night, wildfires whipping through Jasper National Park were on the edge of the town of Jasper. Fire crews say it was a monster. And this is what it did. The flames, they say, moved 5 kilometers in less than an hour. Parts of the beloved mountain town in the heart of the Rocky Mountains is in ashes. There are no reports of deaths or injuries. About 25,000 people had fled the park earlier this week. But Alberta's premier says it's believed 30 to 50% of the structures in town are damaged.
The wildfire is still out of control, and crews are working in dangerous conditions to try and protect critical infrastructure in the town. So to the brave men and women currently on the ground in Jasper, I want to express my deep gratitude and the gratitude of all Albertans.
I speak to you today with profound sorrow as our community begins to come to terms with the devastating impacts of last night's wildfire that have simply ravaged our small, tight-knit mountain community.
Heather Yourex-West is in Hinton, not far from the entrance to Jasper National Park. Heather, it's raining there now, which must be some relief.
Yeah, Donna, it has been raining pretty steadily all day here, but that rain did not arrive until well after the flames reached the town of Jasper. And so for many, this rain has simply come too late.
There's Mom and Dad's house.
The images of loss are overwhelming. What was once a vibrant street in the town of Jasper burned to the ground. The majestic Moline Lodge lost to flames.
The destruction and the loss that so many of our residents are facing and feeling defies description and is almost beyond comprehension.
The fire entered the town at about 6 p.m. on Wednesday night. And while an evacuation order was issued late Monday, first responders and some others remained. These photos were taken just as the fire entered the town site, as Mel Dressler was leaving the community.
There was so much smoke, I actually couldn't see a lot of the buildings. It's like completely black, smoke. And of course, there were explosions happening all around, gas tanks.
Kimberly Stark is a volunteer firefighter. She says she's proud of the homes they work to save, even if they couldn't save her own.
We stopped at the corner. I got out of the truck and I ran up the street, and I could see my house just starting. It was loud, a lot of popping off of probably propane tanks and other things. It was hot, like too hot. I couldn't stand in the middle of the street. I ran back to the truck and basically bawled.
While there have been significant losses in Jasper, all is not gone. Alberta's premier estimates more than half the town still stands.
Thankfully, I think when I got here, I was surprised to see how hard those responders worked overnight and yesterday to salvage and save as much of the community as possible.
Of course, that means there is a lot of work left to be done. Despite the rain, this fire is still very much a threat. And this community is in for a fight in the days ahead.
Heather, people around the world know and love Jasper, but it's the people who live and work there who, of course, are most anxious to find out what's been lost. What's the mayor saying about that?
Yeah, the mayor is asking for patience right now for 2 reasons. He says, one, the fight to save the remaining structures in Jasper is still ongoing, and first responders, firefighters still need time and space to get that work done. Secondly, he says that the information about the losses needs to be verified. Communicating what has been lost is a priority, though he says it's going to take a little bit of time. Donna?
All right, Heather Yourex-West in Hinton, Alberta. Thanks. Late today, there was another update from the park. Fires are still moving from building to building, and most of the damage is on the west side of town. But all critical infrastructure in Jasper has been saved, including the hospital, emergency services building, the schools, the activity centre, and the wastewater treatment plant. The federal government has approved a request from Alberta for help and is sending the Canadian forces to assist. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau calls what's happening in Jasper heartbreaking and posted, "I want to thank the brave first responders who are in Alberta right now, fighting to save every home and every community they can. Thank you for your courage and for working non-stop to fight these wildfires." The Prime Minister also says more than 400 firefighters from Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, and South Africa are on their way to Alberta. Help is coming from all over. Neetu Garcha looks at what those on the front lines are facing.
Intense winds on dry terrain, creating what fire officials describe as a wall of flames. They reached heights up to 400 feet and spread at about 15 meters per minute. As the firestorm near Jasper, Alberta intensified, a critical decision was made around 8:30 Wednesday night.
The decision was made to evacuate the remaining wildland firefighters and the core incident management personnel who had remained in the town.
Thick smoke and worsening air quality forcing first responders without self-contained breathing apparatus to leave. Officials say water bombers and helicopters were unable to help because of unsafe flying conditions, and crews had to cancel their plan to perform a large-scale ignition to direct the fire towards the river and the highway.
Unfortunately, given how fast the fire was moving, by the time our helicopter was ready to conduct that ignition operation, the winds were too high to proceed safely.
Leaving structural protection crews to focus on saving key infrastructure like the hospital and wastewater treatment plant.
The responsibility for fire management in Canada falls to whoever is responsible for the land. And in this case, with a national park, that falls to Parks Canada.
Professor of Disaster and Emergency Management Eric Kennedy says the severity of the fire made control efforts impossible, even with local, provincial, and federal resources coming together. He says Parks Canada has been actively working on mitigation efforts around Banff and Jasper, but the program lacks sufficient investment.
It's really hard to get the kinds of money and sustained investment that we need for mitigation actions before the fire occurs. As we see climates changing, that can also reduce the window that's available for things like prescribed fire, which help to mitigate the risk ahead of time.
Amidst the devastating scenes of destruction, the dedication and bravery of the firefighters stands out as they work tirelessly under extremely hazardous conditions to protect lives and property. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
Multiple fires are burning across BC as well. Firefighters there are hoping cooler temperatures will help them make some headway in their wildfire battle. There are more than 400 active fires burning across BC now. More than half of them are considered out of control. 25 communities are under evacuation orders. Global's Alissa Thibault is following developments from Ashcroft, BC.
Donna, another sleepless night for some BC communities in the Kootenays region near the Alberta border. Two major wildfires burning on either side of a highway just north of Nelson triggered evacuation orders, including the entire village of Silverton. About 300 properties told to get out last night. Another evacuation order was also issued near 100 Mile House. It's an indication of how serious the situation still is here in BC. Much of the province is rated at an extreme fire danger. There are tinder dry conditions. Yesterday, officials said there had been more than 100 new fires started in just a 24-hour period, most of those ignited by lightning. Now, temperatures have been a little cooler in the past 24 hours, but the strong winds have been persisting. Now, here in Ashcroft, we've even had a little bit of rain today, but the town is still under evacuation alert from the Shetland Creek wildfire that's burning nearby. That's already claimed about 20 structures in the Venables Valley area. Yesterday, the BC Wildfire Service set up camp in Lillooet. That's on the other side of this fire. They are planning to be here for the long term. Donna?
All right, Alissa Thibault in Ashcroft, BC, thanks. In Northern California, wildfire exploded in size overnight and is now the state's largest fire this year. Park fire started north of Sacramento yesterday. Strong winds fueled its spread, and it's already engulfed more than 18,000 hectares of land and is only 3% contained. Neighboring counties are also under evacuation orders. A number of structures have burned and more are threatened. There are no reports of injuries. Temperatures in the area are hovering around 40 degrees. The Canadian Olympic Committee has removed the women's soccer coach, Bev Priestman, saying new information has emerged in the past 24 hours regarding previous drone use against opponents, predating the Paris Summer Games. Canada Soccer has suspended Priestman for the remainder of the Paris Olympics. 2 staff members of the women's team have already been sent home after they were caught flying a drone twice over New Zealand's practice. And there have been questions about whether it's happened before and whether the coach knew. Despite the cloud hanging over the team, they did win a qualifying match today. Crystal Goomansingh reports.
I do have tickets for the final.
Pat Martin has a Canadian soccer combo pack, a flag, a Christine Sinclair jersey, and a beer.
Optimistically, semi-final would be a really good outcome for them. Can they do that? It depends on the day.
Wednesday wasn't a great day. An analyst with Soccer Canada was found to have used a drone twice to spy on New Zealand practicing. Joseph Lombardi was sent home along with assistant coach Jasmine Mander.
It is embarrassing.
Disappointed but not disheartened.
Canada.
Fans traveled 3 hours by train to watch Canada take on New Zealand in a qualifying match and win 2-1.
Go Canada! They had a package for 3 sports, and we took it right away. And then after, we keep adding sports and sports.
The Paris Olympics are a much-needed bit of fun, says Stéphane Dion, Canada's ambassador to France.
It's wonderful to see how fast humankind may run or swim.
315 accredited athletes are set to compete in Paris wearing the maple leaf. Montreal was the last Francophone city to host the Summer Olympics, a fact Dion proudly highlights as he talks about the possibilities that lie ahead for Team Canada.
It's more fun to win, but to have an opportunity like that in your life, it's fantastic, and I wish them the best.
Canada won 24 medals at the Tokyo Summer Olympics, our second highest medal count for the Summer Games. A similar haul is being talked about for these games. Crystal Goomansingh, Global News, Paris.
NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, says it intercepted 2 Russian and 2 Chinese bombers flying near Alaska. The intercept was carried out by Canadian and American fighter jets. NORAD says the bombers were in international airspace and therefore not seen as a direct threat. China and Russia have confirmed they conducted a joint air patrol over the Bering Sea, which divides Russia and Alaska. NORAD says it is monitoring the activity near North America and it will meet presence with presence. There is intense pressure to end Israel's war on Hamas in Gaza, and today U.S. President Joe Biden was expected to urge Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to accept a ceasefire deal. The two met in Washington, and then Netanyahu had a separate meeting with Vice President Kamala Harris. Bianca Fascini reports on whether progress was made.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday.
I look forward to discussing with you today and working with you in the months ahead on the great issues before us.
It was the first meeting between both leaders in Washington since Biden traveled to Israel shortly after the attack on October 7th.
It's also historic for America because we're in the middle of one of the most dramatic weeks, of our lifetimes.
It's also the first time they met since Biden announced he won't be running for re-election this November. That made Netanyahu's second meeting with U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, the only frontrunner to replace the president on the Democratic ticket, just as critical.
The meeting with Biden is sort of the easy meeting. There's a little bit of nostalgia there. They've known each other for decades. The Harris meeting is much more consequential.
Pressure is mounting on all three to end the war between Israel and Hamas. Since the attack last year, dozens of Israeli hostages remain in captivity, and the Palestinian Ministry of Health estimates 39,000 civilians have been killed in Gaza. The Biden administration has been working to close a ceasefire agreement. the main focus of today's meetings. It remains unclear if and when that may happen.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has gone by the nickname Mr. Security, but ever since October 7th, Israelis have been saying he's putting his political security ahead of Israel's security. If he comes home with a hostage deal, I think he will have vindicated himself. It doesn't look like he's going to clinch it.
As the war rages on, countless protests continue around the world, affecting both Biden and Netanyahu in their home countries.
And once he wraps up his trip here in Washington, Netanyahu will head down to Florida, where he's going to meet with former U.S. President Donald Trump. Donna?
Bianca Fascini in Washington. Thanks. The Israeli military says it's recovered the bodies of 5 Israelis who were taken by Hamas on October 7th. Israel's military says it discovered the bodies of a kindergarten teacher and 4 Israeli soldiers in what they say was an unguarded Hamas tunnel during a raid in the southern city of Han Yunis on Wednesday. The IDF claims that tunnel was underneath an area that had been designated a humanitarian zone. Canada's largest grocer about to pay out a lot of dough. Coming up, how Loblaw is settling the lawsuits over a bread price-fixing scheme. The CEO of Loblaw says it never should have happened, and the company has agreed to pay out $500 million to settle a class action lawsuit over its involvement in a bread price-fixing scheme. The lawsuit was brought against George Weston and other major companies, including Metro, Walmart, Canada, and Sobeys. Anne Gaviola explains.
$500 million. That's how much Loblaw and its parent company, George Weston, have agreed to pay in a lawsuit brought against it and Canada's major grocers, including Metro, Walmart Canada, Giant Tiger, and Sobeys owner Empire, relating to a 14-year scheme involving price-fixing bread discovered in 2015. Nearly $100 million has already been paid out to customers in the form of gift cards.
I think people are being charged way too much. I think there's definitely collusion happening between the big grocers.
Galen Weston apologized to customers and said this behavior should never have happened. But both Metro and Sobeys tell Global News there's no evidence their companies or employees contravened the Competition Act.
The other grocers continue to deny that they played any role in it. What it looks like is that those 2 bread supply companies perhaps colluded. And we've seen no evidence that grocers other than Loblaw's participated in that.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh expressed disbelief at the financial outcome of the bread price-fixing scheme.
You want to know how much Canadians were ripped off? To the tune of $5 billion.
He renewed his call for a federal price cap on grocery essentials, highlighting how much he paid at a Toronto Loblaw.
Baby formula, something that's very essential, on sale, this is over $50. You're getting ripped off.
This as Loblaw shared its second quarter earnings. Profit was down compared with the previous year, and the quarter includes a month-long national boycott of Loblaw and its other brands. When asked in a call with analysts, Loblaw executives characterized the damage as minimal.
We did notice a bit of an impact in certain stores and specific markets, but that said, at the end of the quarter, things had returned to normal.
The overall financial impact was minor.
The Grocery Code of Conduct is the federal government's attempt to take the country's big retailers to task. But it won't be implemented for another year, and analysts say consumers won't be reaping the immediate benefit.
The truth is, I don't expect that it will give us any significant relief in terms of food prices.
Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Ahead, the Philippines in a race against time to contain an oil spill. A tornado touched down on Montreal's South Shore just after 8 p.m. last night. The twister overturned a semi-trailer, brought down trees, and caused significant damage to infrastructure. Environment Canada says it's also investigating tornado-like activity in the Laurentians, Boucherville, and on a farm near Quebec City. Typhoon Gaimi is heading into China after leaving a trail of destruction in Taiwan. Searches are underway for 9 people who were on board a cargo ship which sunk off the coast during the storm. Several other ships were left stranded. The typhoon battered Taiwan with flash flooding and wind gusts of up to 227 kilometers per hour. 3 people have died, and before this, the storm hit the Philippines, killing 22 people there. And the Philippines is now racing to contain an oil spill after a tanker carrying close to 1.5 million liters of industrial fuel capsized off the country's coast. The ship sank in rough seas in the wake of that typhoon. One person was killed, 16 others were rescued from the vessel. An aerial survey showed an oil slick spanning several kilometers. High winds and huge waves are hampering efforts to contain it. Next, what makes Jasper such a national treasure? Those who know and love Jasper are drawn to its breathtaking beauty, majestic mountains, and pristine lakes. The national park is one of the most gorgeous protected pieces of wilderness in the world. It's no surprise about 2.5 million visitors visit Jasper every year. If you haven't made it there yet, Eric Sorensen has this look at why the park and the town nestled in the Rocky Mountains is so exceptional.
Yep, it's my backyard.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Ken Kuzminski was once president of the Jasper Chamber of Commerce and a local politician. He knows the town, the buildings, the people, and what made it all so special.
It wasn't just the mountains. I think it was the community spirit, and everybody that lives there has an extreme love for the community.
What makes Jasper beautiful also made it vulnerable. A community nestled near pine forests in the Rocky Mountains, where indigenous people have lived since time immemorial.
99% of our surroundings is wilderness, and it's a dream come true to live there.
The area was once a fur trading hub. The community began as a railway town for the transcontinental. It was soon recognized for its tourism potential.
A hospital, theater, and accommodations open the year round.
It became one of Canada's most famous destinations for visitors from around the world. Historic buildings were restored for the very purpose of preserving Jasper's history. The park's visitor center, built more than 100 years ago, the former Canadian National Railway Station, the old Imperial Bank building, and the Jasper Fire Hall. You can feel the pain of those forced to leave.
I'm not really sure we're going back there. It's sad.
Large sections of the park, a World Heritage Site, have already been scorched. In town, familiar spots like Moline Lodge have burned down. Much of Jasper is gone, and it hurts.
The town of Jasper and the park surrounding it have been a source of pride. With some of the most beautiful scenery in the entire in the world.
And yet, nature and human nature together will bring it back, says Ken Kuzminski.
You'll see the forest regrow, and I think you'll see the rebirth of the community at the same time.
Mark and Megan LeBlanc know they've lost their home, but are just as certain that their lives can be rebuilt in Jasper.
It's a really strong community, and that's what makes it special, and that's what's going to help us get past this.
Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is from Jasper National Park before the wildfires. We treasure our national parks in Canada. People in other parts of the world come here to hike and camp and climb and bask in their natural beauty and can only dream of having such stunning wilderness on their doorstep. Sometimes those of us who live here can take that for granted. What's happening in Jasper National Park now is a reminder to cherish what we've got, because it can be so easily lost. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.